The Abbasid Caliphate bought Turkish boys as slaves and trained them for war. Within 2 generations, those same slaves were deciding who got to sit on the throne of one of the biggest empires on earth. So here's the real question people still argue about. Did the Turks convert to Islam at sword point, or did they walk into it themselves? About 2,000 years ago, Turks weren't Muslim, Christian, or anything close. They were nomads scattered across the steppes of Central Asia. And their religion was Tengriism, belief in one sky god, spirits in nature, and deep respect for ancestors. Their first empire, way back around 200 BCE, was built by a warlord named Meitei Han. You might know him better by his Chinese name, Modu Chanyu. He took the throne by turning his own soldiers against his father. That ruthless streak shows up again and again in Turkish history. Here's something people don't expect. The first time Turks and Arabs ever met wasn't on a battlefield. It was on the Silk Road. In cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, Arab traders showed up selling spices and perfume, and Turkish traders sold them horses and furs. Centuries before Islam ever entered the picture, these two peoples were already doing business together. Now fast forward a few hundred years. Some Turkic tribes had drifted west into Europe, and under a leader named Attila, they built the Hunnic Empire, terrifying the Byzantines, collecting tribute, breaking the Roman Empire in half. But when Attila died, that empire collapsed almost overnight. And here's the twist: the Turkic tribes left behind in Europe didn't go back to their old ways. Surrounded by Christian culture, they slowly converted to Christianity. That was actually the first major religious shift in Turkish history, and barely anyone talks about it. Meanwhile, back in Central Asia, a different Turkish leader, Ğemen Kağan, broke free from foreign rule and built the Göktürk Kaghanate, the first state in history to officially carry the name Turk. And that's the world Islam walked into. Muslim armies, led by commanders like Qutayba ibn Muslim, pushed into Turkish territory in the early 700s, taking cities like Bukhara and Samarkand. This is where the forced conversion theory comes from. Some point to brutal military campaigns in this era as proof that Turks only accepted Islam because they were terrified. But here's the problem with that theory. It doesn't match the timeline. If Islam had been forced on the Turks by the sword, you'd expect mass conversion right away. Instead, it took almost 200 years for large numbers of ordinary Turks to actually convert. 200 years is a long time to be forced into anything. There's also a financial reason the sword theory falls apart. Non-Muslims paid higher taxes than Muslims under Islamic law. So really, it was in the state's interest for people to stay non-Muslim, more tax money. When one governor in Egypt got nervous that too many people were converting and taxes were dropping, he asked the caliph if he should step in and stop it. The caliph's answer: Allah did not send us as tax collectors. In other words, let them convert if they want to. So, if it wasn't the sword, what was it? Turns out, it was a mix of things. Tengri beliefs already lined up with Islam in a lot of ways. One God, life after death, strict rules against lying and stealing. Trade brought Turks and Muslims into daily contact. And Muslim traders had a reputation for being painfully honest, the kind of thing that actually impressed people. But the biggest driver? Power. The Abbasid Caliphate started recruiting Turks into its own army. One caliph in particular, Al-Mu'tasim, whose own mother was Turkish, bought thousands of young Turkish slave soldiers, trained them, and gave them silk uniforms that made them stand out from everyone else. These soldiers caused so much chaos in Baghdad that the caliph had to build them their own city, Samarra, 60 miles away. And here's the wild part. Those Turkish slaves became so powerful, they started deciding which caliph got to rule. A former slave, Ahmad ibn Tulun, whose own father had once been a Turkish slave soldier, ended up ruling Egypt as an independent king. The people the empire imported as servants ended up running it. Then came the real turning point, not a battle, but a choice. In the early 900s, a Turkish ruler named Satuk Bughra Khan converted to Islam and took the name Abd al-Karim. He wasn't defeated in war, he chose this. And when he did, his entire people, the Karakhanids, followed him. Within just a decade, historians say around 200,000 Turkish households had adopted Islam. That's not a forced conversion. That's a nation following its leader by choice. From there was no turning back. Turkish Muslims kept expanding west. In 1071, the Seljuks crushed the Byzantines at Manzikert and opened the door to Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Centuries later, the Ottomans would turn that same region into the heart of the Islamic world. So, forced or free choice? The evidence points pretty clearly one way. Turks weren't converted by fear. They were converted by opportunity, by shared beliefs, and eventually, by their own leaders choosing faith over force. If you want more real history behind the dramas you love, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me which empire you want covered next.